All right, I think we're live. Hello, and welcome to Getting Started with Node-RED. I'm Kyle, AA0Z, and with me is Dave, WO2X. This is a bi-weekly live stream on Thursday night starting at 8 p.m. on Central, where we hopefully get you up and running quickly on Node-RED and answer any questions you might have. So the way this is going to go tonight is the first half of the stream is going to be dedicated to a deep dive topic, which tonight we're going to cover installing nodes and importing and exporting flows. Second part is going to be answering your general Q&A questions. So I'll bookmark the chapters in the video, and you can go back and quickly reference this video. The links will be down in the description, so you can quickly find stuff. There's a few links in the description of the video below. The first is loading Node-RED on a Pi, which is on my YouTube channel. There's also a wiki that Dave put together, a very good wiki that is it's a link in the groups, the Ham Radio Node-RED groups IO group. So if you have not joined that group, go ahead and join that group. Also, if you have any questions about the deep dive topic as we move along, just put your questions in the chat and we will answer them. So with that, Dave, hello. Thank you for joining me on this initial run here. Hopefully we'll do some good here and make this a bi-weekly thing and bring Node-RED to the people. So how are you, man?
Doing well, Kyle, and good evening, everybody. Dave, WO2X, and as Kyle said, we're going to try this out and see if we can help some of the guys to get up and running. So what I've done is I've taken a Raspberry Pi and following the wiki on the Node-RED for Ham Radio site is installed the operating system and configured the Pi according to the wiki for installing the 32-bit operating system. And so we're at that point. So what do you do at that point? What's the next step? And that's where we're at tonight. So
Yep.
We're going to be going ahead and as Kyle said, going to be importing some nodes that are required for some of the flows. And then we'll go through importing some flows and then also exporting. And along the way, I'm going to show a couple of errors that you may see and explain why the errors are there and how to correct them.
So I'm going to ask you dumb questions as we go along, and hopefully you can answer them and say, oh, this is what you need to do, or this is the things that you need to do to accomplish that. So hopefully I will be a good student and you will be a good teacher. How about that?
I think you know a lot more than being the student.
All right, so let's get started, Dave. You want to share your screen there, and we'll get started.
Yep. Okay, share screen. And so we got my desktop up here. So once you have followed through the wiki and rebooted your Raspberry Pi, the first thing we want to do is we want to go into the Node-RED editor. And the Node-RED editor, in order to access it, you put in the IP address of your Raspberry Pi, or if you're running on Windows, it'll be the Windows would be the local host. And then it's :1880 is the default port. And that will bring up the Node-RED editor.
Oh.
And so now for people who have not seen Node-RED, not familiar with it, just a little bit of the information on the editor. The main section in the middle is called your workspace. This is where you would construct a flow. On the left, we have what are called nodes. And nodes are building blocks for what they call a flow. And think of a flow in a flow chart sense of, it goes from one node to the next, and then that node says, what do I do with the data? And then it does something with the data, passes it off to the following node.
So those nodes that you have on the left-hand side, those were loaded as default nodes whenever you installed Node-RED, right?
That's correct. These were default nodes installed with Node-RED, and they're grouped. There's different groups. You have common nodes, One of the nodes that you'll be using a lot is the debug node, and we'll get into that probably at a later live stream when we start getting into troubleshooting some of the flows. But you have common nodes, and one of the common nodes I will point out tonight is the comment node. And a lot of flows that people create, they'll use this node, and you can open it up and you could just actually go in and type in comments for that specific flow. It might be instructions on how to set it up. For example, if you have a Power Genius amplifier, I have a comment node that says, okay, you got to go in and change the TCP/IP node to the IP address of the amplifier. So there'll be some instructions in the comment nodes. So you may see those in some of the flows. Function nodes, these perform functions, different functions on the data itself. Then you have networking, which is getting the information into Node-RED, getting it out of Node-RED, and different methods. And again, we can cover this another week.
Yep.
You can have a node to play audio. You can have it do something in Node-RED and then actually have it play audio out through the web browser. So if you're accessing this, I'm accessing this from my PC right now and not from the Node-RED server. So the audio would play through my PC speakers. And then there's, different types of nodes, parser nodes, storage nodes, and we got some Raspberry Pi specific nodes that when I loaded Node-RED, it asked if I wanted to, install them, and I said yes. So these are the default nodes that are installed. A lot of the flows that we've created, different users in the Node-RED group for the different equipment, watt meters, antenna tuners, relays, power switches, antenna switches, and amplifiers. All that equipment, some of the flows for those equipment, they use specific nodes. And what we'll do is we'll load in a list of what is recommended at the next step after you have loaded in the operating system and configured the operating system. In the wiki page, I have brought up Node-RED ham radio under the wiki section here. It's groups.io /g/Node-RED-ham radio. And then the wiki section, the README is a list of nodes that are recommended to install as the next step. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to go ahead and install these.
The links to the groups.io ham radio, Node-RED ham radio is in the link of the description of this video. So you can click that and it'll take you right to the homepage. And the wiki, like you said, Dave, is on the left-hand side at the bottom. So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, okay. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to go load these. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to purposely not load this one, the Node-RED contrib UI level. The reason being is when we import one of the flows that requires that node, it's going to throw an error. And I want to show people when you get that error, what to do with that error and what that error means and how do you correct it. So, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to move this over to another page because it's a little easier for me here. And or I could, come on, there we go. And so in order to do that, again, we have our workflow here and we have the nodes on the left. In the upper right, there's just 3 horizontal lines. We call it the hamburger menu. And when you click that, you have different menus. Import is for importing flows, export to export your flows. And you have different, different things here we'll go through. But one of the things we're going to do right now is this on the left where these nodes are. That's called your palette. Similar to an artist with their different color paints that they would have on a palette, you have your different nodes. So to add a node, we're going to click on Manage Palette. And this shows us the nodes that are installed in addition to the default nodes from Node-RED. So in order to install a node, we would click the Install tab, and we could click in the name to search for a specific node. So
that is not that intuitive whenever you first load Node-RED on how do I get the nodes that I need loaded. It takes a little bit to get over there.
Right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can do this. It'll probably be a little easier to split screen this and move it over. So what I'm going to do is bring this over to here and do this. So the first one we're going to do is Node-RED contrib message resend. And what you could do is you can just go ahead and you just copy it. And in the search, you can just paste it. And of course, it doesn't find it. There it is. Yeah,
all right, there it is.
Refresh it. And so when you hit the refresh here, it comes up Node-RED contrib message resend. So we can hit install and then install. And now this will install that node, and it'll come up when it's done. And if it, gives you green, it was just, successful loading the node. If it fails for whatever reason, if there's any node dependencies, it would come up with an error if it had a dependency that's not installed first.
Where do you go? And if I've noticed that whenever I install nodes and they fail, where do I go to find the error log to see what failed if I didn't catch that drop down that came down?
Well, you can get into the error log in Node-RED. What I usually do is I usually go to GitHub or NPM, which is the package manager site, and I usually read the instructions of what are the dependencies.
Gotcha.
That's what I do.
Gotcha. Okay.
I kind of cheat. I go and I just look for the answer before I start looking for the error.
So there is a way that you can install manually through the command line through the NPM package manager, right?
That's correct. So you can install them manually through NPM. And you can, and if people don't know what GitHub is a site for a lot of developers where they can share their work. People can take it, they can create what they call a fork, or they can take it and kind of make it their own and add and edit it and create a parallel development of whatever that is that the developer had been working on.
Gotcha.
It's a place where people can share their work. And Stephen N1SH, he's on here tonight. Hello, yep. Stephen. And he's got his GitHub set up there with his work on there as well.
Okay.
So anyway, you can also I see that you can look at the error log. So the next one is Node-RED contrib UI LED. So what you can do is you can just do UI-LED also. And now you'll see there's two different versions. As I mentioned before, somebody did some work that they call a fork. But if you look at the dates of when it was last updated, the UI LED was a month ago, and the fork that somebody tried to add their own touch to it was over a year ago. So yeah. Obviously we want the UI LED. So I'm going to install that.
So most of these you want the original. You don't want the fork or Correct. Something that you want it word for word on what you've put on the wiki, right?
Right. And as people develop flows, and if they have any nodes that are specific to their flows, by all means, contact me and I'll add them to this list so people can add them in. There's really not a performance hit to add the extra nodes into Node-RED. If the nodes are being used is where you start, it starts using resources, but to load the extra nodes into the pallet, it really doesn't contribute to any extra load.
Yep.
So I'm gonna skip the UI level, as I said. So the next one is the dashboard. And if I could spell it right, I'd be dangerous. And what we want is we want Node-RED dashboard.
So there's a good example on the first one that comes up. It's called dashboard-EVI. That's not the one you want. You want the one that actually you have spelled out in the wiki.
Yeah, Node-RED dashboard. And if you notice, that installed a whole slew of nodes into the palette when you install dashboard. So the node wake on LAN, this is needed for the Elecraft KPA 1500 flow I wrote, where it uses a magic packet to wake up the amplifier through the network. This and is also, go ahead.
And also, I've noticed that I did not do this whenever I was starting to get more familiar with Node-RED, is you need to go into the Pallet manager, and a lot of these nodes have updates, and it will tell you when you have an update, and it will be instead of the install button, there will be another button that says update. And
if you go on, instead of the install tab, if you go to the nodes tab, and you look down here, if anything needs an update, you'll see that there would be an update, and we give you the version number for the update. That will give you the option to update those nodes that are installed.
Yep. So good practice is every once in a while you need to go in and see what needs to be updated along with your Node-RED install. And one thing that is not clear is to update your install. Typically, you just rerun the install package manager, or the package that you initially installed Node-RED with, and it will automatically update to the latest version. So there's a script out there for a lot of people who run it on Raspberry Pi. So you just rerun the script that is out there on the Node-RED website for the Raspberry Pi, and it will automatically upgrade and use pretty much all the default settings for that upgrade and get you up to the latest version.
So if you were to copy and paste, as you saw I did on the last one here, you have to hit the refresh button here in order to see it.
Ah, gotcha.
And ping is now with the latest version 2.14, I think I loaded today. With the 2.1 of Node-RED, the ping node is loaded automatically now. So that I'm leaving on the list for the people that have older versions of Node-RED. But I highly recommend to upgrade your version of Node-RED, and I'll show you that in a little bit, how to do that as well. And here's the good one. This is Steven's magic that he did.
That's the magic sauce right there.
Yeah, the Node-RED Flex radio.
The magic node.
So that's Steven giving you a couple of plugs there.
Now, if you don't have a Flex radio, I'm assuming you don't have to load the Flex radio node?
That's correct. You don't need to load it if you don't have a Flex radio. So most of the group started centric around the Flex radio. Not everybody, but a lot of the people were centric about having Flex radios and then adding the peripherals to it. So it kind of was the core, the basis for the group. So as it's expanded, we have people using ICOM radios, Kenwood radios, and using Node-RED for things other than radio. So it's not just radios. There's all kinds of uses for Node-RED.
So Kevin, not a Pallet or a flow question, but as you're loading flows there, or nodes there, Dave says, is there a timer that I can adjust to keep the debug messages longer? Was debugging my WebSocket flow and all the messages would clear before I could read them all. Now, I have seen that behavior, Kevin, but what it was something deep in the programming of Node-RED, and I restarted my Node-RED program, and the debug messages stuck in the debug window. So, Dave, do you have any opinions on that?
To tell you the truth, what I do is when I see the error is, and once we load a flow, we'll go into debug and show this to Kevin. I just copy it and paste it into Notepad. I usually have Notepad open, and I'll copy it from the debug and then paste it into Notepad. So that this way I can look at it in more detail. And,
Gotcha.
kind of when I get into getting data, if I'm hooking up a new piece of equipment and I've got a stream of information coming in from the equipment, I want to be able to capture it and then put it into Notepad and then be able to break it down and look at it and
Yes.
and also save it as well.
Yep.
So
Okay.
I've just got done with all of the nodes except for the UI level node. So once we do this, our next step is to hit deploy, and it's deployed. So these nodes are now active. So if I were to minimize this for now, I keep getting this in the way. Let me put this back over on the other side. There we go. So we scroll down, there's going to be some new nodes in here.
Yep.
These are all the dashboard nodes that are added in that weren't there before. These are Stephen's Flex Radio nodes. And there are some other ones here that were added in. The string node was added in, the stop timer 3 to convert. So that pretty much covers adding in extra nodes. And the debug's max length.
Yeah.
I can actually show you where that's at.
Yeah, you want to. Well, let's keep going on. Yeah, let's keep going on the flow.
We'll go back. What we'll do is we'll go back to these questions after we're done with the first half of what we're doing tonight.
Yes.
So we just don't get out of order and kind of get off track.
Yeah.
So once you get done, you deploy. You now have all the nodes that you need. The next step is we want to import a flow. So I figured the first flow that I want to import is going to be my my Flex Radio flow that works with Stephen's nodes. So in order to import, first thing you would do is you would download the flows. So again, on the Node-RED site, come on, doesn't want to cooperate tonight. Under the files section in the Node-RED site, we have flows by type. And I started moving things around to try and group them where they make a little bit more sense. So under radios, I have a Flex Radio. And then under here, Flex Radio flows for use with N1SH Flex Radio nodes. Alan has his flow, which is everything, including the kitchen sink, is very comprehensive. And then the other thing is right here is a Flex Radio, which is the version 11. This is the flow that I use for my radio.
Okay.
So I've already got it downloaded, but in order to download it, you just click it and it will come up and it'll download. You can go to open file. It's in my downloads folder.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do now is minimize this. To import a flow, we click on the hamburger menu, go to import. And you can either, if you know the JSON code, and these flows are usually in a JSON format, you can paste it in here, or you can select a file. So, for example, Flex Radio version 11. This is the one I just downloaded. So I highlight it, hit open, and I hit new flow and import. And you notice it failed with an error here, right? The red UI level, it's missing.
Now, so, let's go back one step there. You clicked on new flow there, and it created another new tab called Flex Radio. If you had a flow that you wanted to import into an existing tab, you could have imported that into the current flow that you were currently selected, which would have been your flow 1 up there at the top, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the if you notice, it came up with an error for unknown, the UI level node. And
Yep.
if you look here, as you look at the flow, this is what a typical, or maybe not so typical, but this is what a flow looks like. And again, it's like a flow chart. Data comes in from the message node, comes in, does something in the switch node, and then it sends it out to different places.
Yep.
And again, each node processes the data, does something with the data, and then forwards to the next node. So if you notice here on the right, the UI level node is unknown, it's missing. So if I were to deploy this right now, which I'm going to, and then we'll go back and we'll just delete it, but I'm going to hit deploy and confirm, and it's successful, but I got an error message there.
Yep.
So now if I were to refresh, what happens, and see if it makes a liar out of me. It's still coming up with an unknown error. And then what would happen is in the dashboard, I would be missing that UI level meter. That's what that's for.
Yep.
But it still has an error. You notice it says flow stopped. So the flow will not work because it's missing that. So it will not start that flow until you correct the error. So there's two, so you can do one of two things. When you get an error like that, you can just, copy down what it is, and you can come into here, manage palette, and it's UI underscore level. So we come back here, there's UI underscore level, and there's our node that we have to install.
Are most of them going to give you some indication on what the node is called that you need to import or you need to install?
Yes, and if you notice now you have the level node here, but sometimes the name is not exactly what it is in the palette manager.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
you just kind of have to hunt around.
Right. If you notice, that's that's my mic level.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you see I'm about -2 with my mic gain on the radio. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're ready to deploy at this point. So I'm going to hit deploy, and now it's successfully deployed. So again, now with that's one flow we imported. What we can do is we can go and import a couple more flows.
Yeah, why don't we show some more examples here?
So I'm going to go back to the site, and what we'll do, actually, I will do it from the site. And under flows by type, we'll go into the amplifiers, and I have my Power Genius XL right here that I wrote, and we'll download that one. I'll go back up, and we'll go to tuners, and we'll do the Tuner Genius.
As you're doing that, Steven says, also in the same place as import are examples you can import from each of the packages.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good tip.
That's why we got Steven on board. He's going to keep us on the straight and narrow.
He is. Well, we need Elmers and mentors.
I will be the first to admit I am not an expert at this. I've just did a lot of reading, a lot of Google searches, and just been playing with this probably for about 4 years now. And just
well, and also I'm not a programmer at all, and I have I mean, I get through my Node-RED stuff by Googling. If I need to parse an array or have a for or a do loop through an array, what I do is I try and get to the syntax that I think is in my head, and I put that in Google, and usually something comes up, and I'm like, oh, that's what actually it's called. And then I search on that term in Google and find an example and copy that example to get me where I need to be. So Node-RED is very, it looks very easy. It can be very tough on the back end if you want to do some manual programming, but there is a ton of examples. And also the groups IO, if you've got a question on how to do, or what you need to do or how you need to do it, just post something in the group's IO and somebody will answer you because there are
there's
smarter people than us in that group's IO.
there's a lot of good resources. There's about 900 users in the Node-RED for ham radio groups IO.
900?
900.
Holy
So
moly.
we've got a lot of great talent in there, and each person brings something different to the table,
Right.
something new. So I'm good at parsing data, figuring out how to get the data that you need out of a string of data, and be different ways of doing parsing and stuff like that. Alan is very good at making dashboards and stuff. So everybody in the group is brings a little different to the little different thing, and a lot of good information. So anyway, getting back to the Flex Radio
let's
flow,
go.
just to go through this, you would have to go into the README, and I have to update this for version 11, but set up the Flex request, Flex status, and the Flex message and the Flex meter nodes. So if you were to do a pull down here, I have it set for automatic. If I wanted, I could add a new radio into pencil, and I have a choice of automatic, discovery, or manual. Manual would be if you knew the IP address of the radio, you could put it in. Discovery would use the discovery. It found the radio. I could click on that. And again, automatic will automatically find the radio. I'm going to hit cancel since I already had it set up for my radio here. But so the first thing, if you have a Flex radio and you load this flow, you would need to just set this up. And if it's set for automatic, it should automatically find if you have a single radio on the network, it's going to find that radio and then set up the connection. And you'll see green is connected, and my radio happens to be where I live, Pequannock, New Jersey. So, and
do you have other flows that you were going to load?
Yes.
Okay.
So just wanted to point that out, that
okay.
I had made a comment about these white comment nodes, and it just gives you information on what needs to be configured for that flow to make it work. So for a Flex radio, that would be the information you would need. I have to update the version 11. So going on, and we're going to import, and we're going to select a file, and I've downloaded a couple more. So we'll do the Power Genius. Import a copy.
So what you just did there, let's go back or import another one and bring up that screen, and let's explain what that screen means.
So again, under the README here, it's just telling you need to set the IP address, and that's right here. So this happens to be the IP address of my amplifier. The port is already set. That's the port for the Power Genius. So the only thing you would need to change here would be the IP of your amplifier on the network.
Okay.
And little networking tip here. I highly recommend if you have like a Flex radio or anything that's IP on a network that you're going to be tying in with Node-RED and stuff, in the router, rather than setting static IP addresses and stuff, I recommend DHCP reservations in the router, because if you ever get a different router and it's on a different subnet, you won't be able to talk to anything if you have static IPs.
Yep.
So I just recommend just setting it up with DHCP reservations, so it always gets the same IP address assigned. So we're going to go into the next one, which is the Tuner Genius. And if you noticed, what I did with the Tuner Genius is I did current flow, and it created a new tab. So whether you do new flow or current flow, it didn't matter. It just did.
Hang on. So some of the nodes you are importing already exist in your workspace. So you got cancel, view nodes, or import copy.
Right. And so what's happening here is it's saying, configuration nodes, and it just says that they're in two different places. So it can replace them. So in other words, when it goes to use the node from the pallet, it's already being used in another flow. So
gotcha.
It gives you the idea, the ability to overwrite it, which you don't need to do. It's already there. So when you import it, you don't have to do that. You just do that. So I'm bringing the Tuner Genius again.
Yeah, Nick says insert copy creates duplicates, and the answer is no.
No. If you go in on the right here, Nick, and you go into configuration nodes, you'll see each two, like under the Flex Radio, and this is the node, the UI base, the UI group nodes, the type of nodes that they are, and where they're being used in each flow. So in flow 1, there's nothing. And it just says these are what's being used on all the flows. And then Flex Radio, I have a bunch of spacers in there. Power Genius and the Tuner Genius.
That's for the dashboard.
Yes.
Yes.
When we get into another, I think the next time we do this in 2 weeks, we'll do a dive into the dashboard, configuring the dashboard, rearranging it, and making it pretty, and getting into some of those topics.
Yeah.
So for tonight, I've just imported these flows. And again, I would set up right here, set up the IP address of my tuner, which I already have because it's mine. But if somebody else had used my flow, they would need to change that to the IP address of their Tuner Genius.
So the moral of the story is, after you've imported a flow, doesn't matter if it's the flows from the groups IO or it's a flow that you found on the internet, is to go in and see if there's a README file, or go in and make sure that all of your flows are configured correctly before you deploy. Or if you deploy your flow, it might not work because it's looking for some type of configuration or input from you.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat here. And I think I have, which one would I want to use? These are ones that I played with. Stream Deck, and that, if you notice, that's missing some stuff, so that's not gonna work. So if I don't want to import that one, because right now, if I import it, I don't want to do that. So
right, yeah. Let's keep on track here.
But I just wanted to import one more. We'll import this one. This is the my rotor flow.
Okay.
So once you're done, we hit deploy, confirm the deploy, and yeah.
It's going to give you errors.
Yeah, it's going to give me errors on that one. But
so those errors are not from the flows that you imported. The flows,
that's the ones from that I tried to import that are missing the nodes.
Right.
So these all imported fine. Now, once we're done, the access dashboard and see everything. First thing is, just for examples, and again, we'll get into the dashboard in more details in the next session, but under the Flex Radio tab, in this arrow right here below the hamburger menu in the upper right, if you go to dashboard, since these are all my flows, they created this group called WO2X Shack Control. And then under that main page in the dashboard, I have a Flex Radio group, a Power Genius group, a Tuner Genius group, the Antenna Genius I didn't import yet. And then there's the beam rotor. I didn't import these other ones, but because my flows are all interwoven with those other groups, it's created the groups. But when we look at the dashboard, they're going to be empty. There's nothing in them. Yep. So, or actually what I did is I put the metering, the radio metering under Antenna Genius. So again, when you go into dashboard, this is the main page of the dashboard. And then these are the groups that it creates on that page. And you can have multiple pages and you can move things around. And again, we'll get into that.
We'll get into that now. Yep.
To access the dashboard, we open up a new tab. And it's the IP address of the Node-RED server, :1880/UI for user interface. And that will bring up our dashboard. And why don't we have, oh, you know what it is? I bet you it doesn't like that error up here.
Yep.
The SD image. So in order to fix this,
Well, we'll get into dashboards next week.
I have to fix this though. So these nodes are missing.
Yeah.
So if we go to manage palette, one of them is Stream Deck. So and it's a Stream Deck WS is what it is. Node-RED contrib Stream Deck WS. So that's one of them that I'm missing. And the other one was the image.
SD input and SD output.
Yeah, no, I got those.
Okay.
And
I want to be
tools.
I want to be aware of time here. We're 41 minutes into it, and I like to keep this to an hour.
Okay. So just want to fix this.
Yep.
And then we can redeploy, and it should get rid of the error.
Okay. Yeah, we still have to discuss exporting flows and backing your stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
Taking quite a while to.
Yeah, this one takes a while to load.
If you have any questions in the chat about anything Node-RED, put them in there after we get done with this deep dive. We'll ask Dave.
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting, Nick asked a question. When you look at the setting up the Flex Radio, let me just, okay, so now you notice we got rid of that error now. That error's gone. So now if we look at our dashboard, it's now showing the dashboard. So as I said, these groups, we have the Flex Radio group, the Power Genius, the Tuner Genius, the Antenna Genius, and then my rotor flow.
So if someone loads those flows and has the same Tuner Genius and Power Genius and Flex Radio that you've got, well, if they've got those and they load those flows and they put the IP addresses into the correct locations, whenever they hit deploy, they're going to get the same dashboard that you're seeing right now.
Right. They would get the same layout. So I did the Flex Radio flow first, the Power Genius was second, then the Tuner Genius. The Antenna Genius, it created the group because these are meters internal to the radio. And so these meters, instead of putting them under the Flex Radio, I put them over here because my Antenna Genius, I only have 3 antennas. So it doesn't take up the whole height of that tab, or that group, I should say.
Gotcha.
Then the rotor and power control, I didn't load in my power control yet, so that doesn't look with the correct formatting either. So for next week, I'll load in a couple other flows so everything looks a little bit better when we get into the dashboard.
Okay.
In 2 weeks. So now that we have our work is made it this far, we want to be able to back up and export what we've done so we don't lose it in case something happens.
Right.
And so exporting, same thing. You go up to the hamburger menu, we can come into export, and now you have different choices here. We can select a handful of nodes and then go to export, and one of the choices might be selected nodes, or we can go to the current flow, which is the Flex Radio flow, or we can go to all flows. If you're doing a backup and you just want to be able to restore everything from a backup, you can select all flows. I like to do it in JSON format and then click the formatted button. So it's just makes it a little bit better formatting if you were to go back and read it. What you're seeing here is, we'll get into that when we get into advanced topics. But I just like it in the format. It just makes it easier rather than compact. And then all you do is you click download, and it downloads flows.2.json. I can go to show in folder, and I could just right click it, and I could go to rename, and I go all flows, and then do it 11/02/21. and just rename it.
Yep. So that is
Well, yeah,
whenever
well,
I back up all of my flows, I make sure that I put the date, I put a good description and the date on whenever I backed up my flow. So therefore, if I have to go back and reload something, I know when's the last backup that I created.
Yep. And if you notice here, a lot of these, I got this image nodes in here, but it's missing a lot of connections. And that's because, again, I didn't import other flows that were designed to work with this. This whole section here is designed to work with the Stream Deck. I've integrated the Stream Deck with Node-RED, and again, that's going to be an advanced topic down the road.
Oh,
But,
and I'll point out that go back to your flow there, Dave, and scroll down where the Stream Deck stuff was.
Oh, that's Flex Radio Flow.
Yeah, so you can see where all of those nodes got put on top of one another, and it's because I believe you said import them into the same flow, and then
Right.
I think if I remember right, if you say import a flow into an existing flow, it's going to import it, but then it's going to also select it. So therefore, you can move all of that flow into a place into your workspace where it doesn't overlap existing nodes and flows that you've already have on your workspace, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct. And so, yeah, when I canceled out of that, it kind of imported it right into the Flex Radio tab, which was the active tab at the time. So I just cleaned it up and deleted them for now. So again, that covers importing the nodes and then exporting, and also importing flows.
Yeah. Very good.
What we'll do is we'll get into it another time when we can go ahead and start looking at dashboard customization. For example, this is my button for the rotor flow, which is equivalent to hitting 50 here on my rotor and then having that go out and turn the antenna. And so if we want to edit that, you'd have to go into here and be able to go in and change some of the stuff in here. We'll cover that when we get into the dashboard the next time.
Steven points something good out. So we just talked about backing up your flows. So there's also a backup process that you can go through to back up all of your nodes and the configuration of your palette. And that is in the settings.js and the flow credential cred.json for a complete backup. So if you go into, I don't know where it's on the Windows, maybe you can bring that up, Dave, but in a Pi, it is under the user. Usually Pi is the username. Pi, and then it is .node-red is where all of your configuration lies for Node-RED. You can back up that folder and then restore it to another Pi along with the flows that you downloaded, and everything should come back like you had before.
Yeah, if you notice as a default, it comes up and it doesn't show you the .node-red folder. It's a hidden folder. So if you go in to the file explorer within the Raspberry Pi, what I did is I used VNC to connect into the Pi. And you just go into View, Show Hidden, and then you have the .node-red folder here.
Yep. So everything... I just back up everything in the .node-red folder. I'm sure that's probably not the way to do it. I'm sure there's selective folders and files that you can just back up. But I just back up. I make a copy of that, and then I put it on a thumb drive, and then I also take all my flows. Actually, I take it off and put it in my NAS, on my Synology NAS, and back it up that way. So therefore, I have had corrupt SD cards go bad on me on Node-RED, and because I was using crappy cards for development. But always get a good, well-known SanDisk a class. I believe it's class 10. Maybe somebody in the chat will update me on that. But I use a class 10, I believe, SD card, and most of mine have been rock solid. But always back up your flows. Always back up your flows.
So this, the node modules is all the different modules here. The settings.js, Nick asked this earlier. The debug, if you go back into the dashboard, or I should say into the editor, where are we at? Wrong one. And let's just say we turn on one of the message nodes, right here, message payload, and I click on debug up to top. And under here, I could select current flow. And so this is just sending C1 status is what's coming out of, that's what I'm sending into the amplifier, C1 status. If I go over to the right, I'm getting out, turn that off. And you could just see of course, it's not caught up, but just clear all. There we go. So idle band A. So it's coming out of here, and again, it is sending the information for band A. So I'm on band A, and it's idle right now. So that debug node is something where you can put on any node to see what's coming out of the node. And you turn it on and off by clicking the little window to the right of it.
Yeah.
Then sometimes the information coming out, it exceeds 1,000 characters. And if you want to be able to see the complete or more of the debug message, you can actually have it go to the console window and see the complete message coming out. But if you want to see it in the debug and you want to see more than 1,000 characters, Nick had asked us before in the settings.js, if we edit this down towards the bottom, there's a setting where you can set the max, right here, the maximum length in characters for the debug. It defaults to 1,000. I changed mine to 5,000.
So that's
I find 5,000 to be fine.
It's a little hard to read. It says debug max length, and it's down at the bottom of the dot or the settings.js file, right?
Yeah, debug max length : and then space, and it defaults to 1,000. I changed mine to 5,000.
And then after you save that file,
you have to just restart Node-RED.
Yep.
And if people don't know how to stop or restart Node-RED, you could do it through, Telnet. You log on as Pi, you put in your password. In this case, it's a brand new one, so it's Raspberry. And it would be node-red, node-red-stop, and then node-red-start. And that's it.
Yep. You can also do that through systemctl also. But yeah, that's an easier way because you don't have to do a sudo.
Right. So there, so you have all kinds of settings in here that you can go back in and adjust.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
What were some of the questions? I haven't really been watching the chat too much.
Yeah, I don't think that there was per se a lot of questions. There were some good tips. Ronald said if you format your dates as year dash month dash dd, as in day, all of your backups are sorted chronologically, earliest to latest. That's a good tip. And then also Ronald suggested maybe a complete Node-RED backup process might be a good wiki article.
Yeah, that would be a good article to write, doing a complete backup. And in Windows, in the user folder, it's in the root, in C, and then It's Node-RED. I don't have my Nuke up and running right now. I've been using Intel Nuke running Windows 10 as my Node-RED server, just playing around with the Windows side of the fence, just to see if there's a difference. And I've been playing with some other stuff on there.
I think that was it that I saw. Again, we're going to be doing this every 2 weeks, I believe, that we decided. So hit the subscribe button. If you want to get notifications, you can hit the bell whenever we go live for some Node-RED stuff. Hopefully this is going to be good information. I know that some of this is probably an overview or a review on some things that people already know, but we have a lot of people that come into Node-RED, come into the group, and want to get up and going quickly. And some of the things that some of the people that been programming with Node-RED for years and years and years, like Dave, some of this easy stuff comes naturally, but it doesn't come very naturally for the newcomers. So we're hopeful to get a lot more knowledge and get you up and running quickly. So therefore, you can load some flows and get your station automated. And plus, there's a ton of flows out there that are not Flex Radio specific. So don't be intimidated by, if you don't have a Flex Radio, you can't load Node-RED. I've heard that a couple of times just in talking with people, that want to do automation in their shack, but they said, "Oh, I don't have a Flex Radio." You don't have to have a Flex Radio to put automation in your shack. As long as you can get some data out of the device that you're trying to control, you probably can. There's probably a flow, but if there is not a flow and you attempt to create a flow for it, please share it on the group's IO. But if you do get stuck, put a message in the group's IO and say, "Hey, I'm working on this flow. Can anybody help me?" And I'm sure that somebody will chime in.
Yeah, Ron had a question about what's the best way to update a flow that might have been customized, like my flow, for example. What I try to do to the group is I try to put up a flow that's standalone. For example, my Flex Radio version 11 flow is standalone, but the version that I'm using currently on my production Node-RED server is integrated with the Stream Deck and with some other stuff. So it's not a standalone flow. So I try to put up flows that are standalone and not dependent on other equipment and stuff. It just makes it easier. And then you can always, edit them. I mean, the best thing to do is if you have a specific piece of equipment where there's a flow that exists, load that flow, go through the configuration to get it to talk to your equipment, whether it's changing the COM port, changing the name of the USB port, or and we'll get into that when we start getting into where we actually take a piece of equipment and say, "Hey, I got this new piece of equipment. Let's hook it up to Node-RED, and how do we build a flow for it?"
Right.
So I think we're going to get into that a little bit. And so
if you have a flow, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, no, I was going to say when you get to that point, load it in, get it working, and just start playing with the debug node. As I said, I'll go back into share my screen here real quick if I can find.
While you're doing that, if you're going to share a flow that you have created, put your if I loaded this flow with nothing else on my Pi, would it work hat on? And therefore, you've done your test on it's an independent flow. Therefore, you can upload that. So therefore, whenever someone downloads that flow and imports that into their Raspberry Pi or their Node-RED instance, that it's going to work without a lot of links in and links out to other flows that you have created because you have integrated it into your system and your other flows. So just put that hat on whenever you export a flow and upload it to the website, that it can be a standalone flow.
Right. And I don't know why YouTube's not showing the correct video right now.
It's probably delayed a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, because it should be showing. It should have been showing my my editor right now, and it's not. I don't know if I shared the right screen or not.
I'm seeing your editor right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. So just in a real quick, you drag in a debug node, and then from the debug node, I'm going to attach it to the output of the TCP/IP, what they call request node. This is what's actually talking through the network to my amplifier. So if I wanted to see what's coming out, I'm actually going to, what comes out of there is hex information. So just to show you real quick, and we'll wrap it up. I'm going to hit deploy, and then you'll see what's spitting out is hex data. So if I stop this, I can go to any one of these, and you see, and if I go in, it'll show you the actual hex data, and it says raw. If you click raw and I go to string, it'll convert it to string, and this one's actually coming out of the amplifier. So that's coming out of the amplifier. I think it's every 0.2 of a second or something like that. It's pretty quick, sending the information out. And if you notice, the forward power equals 30. That's the minimum. This is in dBm, and then return loss, the SWR is actually return loss minus 60 dBm. So you got to do some calculations to get it into SWR format. So again, this is if you wanted to see the raw data coming out. Again, that's what it is right now. It's just the hex data coming out. If you were to then take that connection and connect that where I have hex to string, hit deploy, clear it, and then do it again, you'll see now it's in a hex, it's in a string format, and I stopped it. So it's easier to read what's coming out. Then there's different nodes here, and you can go to each node, look and see what it does. And it says, if it matches regex, meaning if it has state equals, it'll pass the data through. If not, it ignores the packet or ignores that message coming out. So anything with the word state equals, if you look over here, state equals, anything that has state equals in it, it's going to pass it through. If not, it's not going to pass it.
Yep.
So go ahead.
We'll get into switch nodes and all these other nodes later.
I just want to point out, if somebody wanted to play, they could take that debug node and keep moving it around to see how the data is manipulated through the flow.
Yep. Good deal.
All right.
One last, actually, there might be two questions here. We're going to wrap it up here. So Ronald says, I've renamed, exported my site-specific flow so it's visible, and then loaded the new flow. Is that a reasonable approach? I'm not really sure if we have...
when you say site-specific flow, Ron, are you talking about like for Flex Radio? What you can do is, let's say you have a Flex Radio flow, and this is an older version, and you want to import a new version. You can double click the tab where it says Flex Radio, and just on the bottom left, just click where it says enable, put it disabled. And now that's grayed out and disabled. You can deploy, and then you can import the new one and use the new one. And again, you now have the old one, just in case you don't like the new one. You could delete the new one and re-enable the old one again.
Yep. Yeah, I think, yep. He said, yeah, I've been using Dave Stevens' flow, an older version, wrote a amp flow, which I regularly use, and also leveraged Randy's rotor flow with some customers. So it looks like he got it up and running, whatever he was doing.
Good.
All right. Very good. We're going to try and keep this to an hour every 2 weeks. Hopefully you got some benefit out of this. Again, I'm going to rewatch this and put timestamps in the description so you can find some stuff quickly. Dave, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. We will be back in 2 weeks. Anything you want to say, departing words?
No, that's it. Main thing is have fun. Again, the Groups IO group, Node-RED for ham radio. There's a lot of good guys in there willing to help. I'm willing to help. I'm actually got a nice little special secret project I'm going to be working on probably starting Tuesday or Wednesday of next week.
Ooh.
And once that's done, some people might find it interesting.
Oh, very good. Can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah, I can't really say anything right now until it's released.
Very good. All right. Very good. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back in 2 weeks with, I believe, Dave, dashboards.
Yes, we'll work on dashboards next time, including some customization, changing the theme to dark theme or custom theme instead of that ugly white that you saw. I hate the white theme.
Yeah, I do too.
Or the light theme. So we'll work on going through some of the dashboard customization, and then maybe at a later time get into a little bit more with some of the CSS customization that I've been doing, making some of the buttons look prettier, rounded corners,
Ooh.
and some gradient shading and things like that.
Yeah, that's going to be good stuff. All right, very good. Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Appreciate it. We'll see you in 2 weeks. 73.
All right, take care. 7-3, guys.
All right.